welcome to the Improv Summit. As always, this is season two, and with me today, I was going to say very special guest, but I got in trouble for saying that every single time. So I'm going to change it up. I've had wonderful guests. I had a Dolce de Leche guest on this show, and now today I have a yellow-rific guest. I'll say yellow-rific because I have a yellow background. He's got a yellow shirt. So my yellow-rific guest today is Josh. Josh, how's it going?
It's going good, man. Good to be here. Good to see you.
You too, you too. Let's dive in, shall we? Everyone knows about me, and I always end up making the conversation about myself. So let's just talk about you. Tell me about your background in improv, like whatever that means to you, your relationship to improv.
Hmm. I love improv. It's cliche to say I've been doing improv since I was like a little baby, but I legit have been doing improv in the form of storytelling since I was a little baby.
Mm-hmm.
When I could form intelligent like sentences, I began telling like my relatives long stories that I would make up on the spot, but I would kind of sell the story. This is like when I was like 6 or 7. I don't know how long into the developmental evolution that is in terms of intelligent sentences, but you know, at some point when I was young, I would claim my relatives' time, and I would tell them like 10, 15-minute stories that I would make up. And they thought that these were stories that I had like been taught, or maybe something that had a cohesive beginning, middle, and the end. But it
Mm-hmm.
often turned out to be not the case. So that was my first sort of realization that this is something I love to do. Always been a silly guy, always making up stuff in the middle of class and just playing around with life. I think life is a big improv scene. So I would say at the core of myself is that philosophical stance.
Mm-hmm.
I love life and I love improv because I think just like life, anything's possible to a certain degree,
Sure.
obviously. And then the amount that you commit to what's happening in front of you. And as I close my window to prevent car dealership across the street.
That did not sound like car dealership. I was like, it sounded like tapping like a woodpecker or something, or
Yeah,
like a scratching. I would not have expected car dealership to come out of that window
there
closing.
there's a lot of work going on. They do a lot of work over
Ah,
there.
yeah.
But yeah, man, I truly I relate to life as a big improv scene because I've found that when I like dive head first and mess up and just flop around, it always kind of works out, especially when I have great scene partners, right, so to speak.
Yeah.
And when I'm around cool people who are just as engaged and excited as I am about life, there seems to be a magic that happens that's independent of me. So that's what
Mm.
I love about improv is like you come together and you create something that is beyond you, but that is created through some of your missteps and mistakes and misspeakings. And it's magical in that way. You can't mess it up, really, even if you try.
Yeah.
But really, it's life.
Uh, I love that you said that because I learned in a hard way, and I say a hard way as in like it was me self-judging myself most of the time of like getting improv right. There's a like I have to do this right way of doing improv in this scene. And then realizing very, very later on, but once I realized it, quickly was able to get out of that mindset of being like, oh, I'm not doing anything wrong in improv. Everything I say is right. I mean, granted, there are things that you might say as a human that are wrong, which you should not do in an improv scene. But outside of that, every choice you make is right in an improv scene. And so I think that once I got out of that mindset, it allowed me to have a lot more aha moments as I went on, which was great. But that also relates to what you were talking about with like improv in life, essentially. And I want to touch on that a little bit. What are some elements of improv that you've noticed like that you learn in improv or that you use in improv that can be utilized in everyday life for like non-actors, non-improvisers, non-performers that you can just like take
Mm.
with you?
I love that question. I think trusting, the element of trust, how important trust is in an improv scene,
Hmm.
and then how trust can benefit you or not benefit you, depending on how
Oh yeah.
much you have or don't have. Um, yeah, it's like if you trust yourself to, like you're saying, okay, I might not get this right, but I trust myself to at least be here and give it a shot. Like even that fundamental level of like trusting yourself to just show up and try is much different than being like, wow, I don't even trust myself to like say something. I might just run away. Like if you can develop the trust to even just try something, it actually really supports you and gives you a lot of courage in
Mm.
improv and then in life as well. Like, okay, I don't know if I'm gonna I don't know if I'm gonna actually pull through and like make this job interview happen, but I'll at least trust myself to show up on time and just give it a shot and say
Oh
things
yeah.
and try. I think that really strengthens somebody. So I would say that like trust is a really big thing. Um, yeah, and then uh, kind of this element of like you were talking about like trying to get improv right. I think
Mm-hmm.
something I've related to that. I think something I've learned is it's similar to like imagine trying to be yourself, and if you try really hard to be yourself, that's like you can smell that on someone, right? When they're trying really
Mm-hmm.
hard to be themselves, like, yeah, this is my fedora that it's just mine. I found it on the side of the road. It's really cool and I love it so much. And man, this shirt's like I made it with my hands. I sewed it all together. And this necklace, like, it's my grandma's and I wear it every day. And these shoes, and it's like it's all mine and I love it so much. And I'm so proud of being me. But like at the end of the day, like the conversation with that person, it might feel a little awkward because they're trying so hard to be themselves. Imagine if they were just naked, and they didn't have any of
Mm-hmm.
these things that they identify as themselves. Um, what would be them? And at the end of the day, it's effortless to be yourself because you are yourself. Similarly, it's improv is effortless because it's happening all the time. You
Yeah.
can't try to improv. You're just improving no matter what. You can't escape it. Improv is always happening.
Mm-hmm.
um, so the harder you try at it, the more it becomes like this weird, like what's that? What does that happen when you put like a camera up to a, or no, when you put like a speaker up to a microphone, that reverb effect? You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So like it's similar. It's like if you try too hard to do something, especially improv or be yourself, it creates this like weird reverb kind of effect that
Sure.
throws you off. Throws you off. It makes it harder to be you. It makes it harder to do improv. So that's another big takeaway I think doing improv that I found. Like, gotta relax, gotta settle in, and just let yourself go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I think what's so fascinating to me is how I'm really the person holding myself back from really investing in the best that I can be in my improv. When I feel like I'm doing something wrong, it's like I know I'm doing something wrong, even though we talk like there's nothing wrong about improv, and I think that that's great about like letting like just letting it loose, like not having these like preconceived things going in of like, oh, because I say I talk a lot because I do. And I'm like, I start to like be like, oh, people don't want to hear me talk because I talk too much. So when I do improv, I'm just gonna like not talk. And then I start talking more because I'm thinking about the fact that I don't want to talk versus like if I'm just me, and what does that mean? It means that I'm just going out and supporting whoever's on stage and doing a scene. And like that's like the bare minimum. Like that's all I need to do. I don't need to come in with like maybe I shouldn't talk because I'm too talkative already, or like, oh, I'm not the cool guy. I shouldn't go. It's like I'm just gonna go out there and just like do a scene. Like that's it. Like thinking about it in that way of like how can I support whoever else is in the scene versus how can I make myself look good? Because I will look good because the people who are around me are going to support me. And so if I'm just more focused on supporting someone else, then I'm not thinking about all the things that I'm going to do quote unquote wrong or the things that I'm already preconceiving about myself,
Hmm.
which I think
That's
is
beautiful.
it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just, I mean, as we're riffing on this, like
Yeah.
it brings me to this recognition that when each person is in that space in a scene and everyone is in service to the other, which is not totally selfless because you know that if you are truly present, listening, open, available to what's going on, and then you trust that the other person's doing the same, the whole scene flourishes and you benefit as a result. So it's kind of this, you're incentivized to be selfless, which
Mm.
is awesome because then you can be selfish in being selfless and it's still morally great, I think.
Yeah, and you're being selfish without actually being selfish because you're not thinking about
Yeah.
being selfish. It's setting the ego aside to boost the
Ah,
ego, which is the irony of it all.
ah, that
You,
is the
you can use
irony of
that
it
if
all.
you
But
want.
is that true? Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I thought that'll be in my book for sure.
Also, by the way, that was a completely improvised phrase because this whole conversation has been improvised, other than the questions, the
What?
pre-asked questions. But like, what improv works in every way because you're improvising as you talk and as you converse and as you speak. which leads me into another question. Not a great segue, but it doesn't matter because whatever. It's not about the segues, it's about the answers. So, so that being said, um, are there any scenes that you remember either watching as an audience member or performing in as an improviser where you had like these like aha moments? Because what I say is usually, I think I originally was like, I have to be able to improvise or I can't improvise. That there was no like, I can learn this, and then start putting them in my tool belt. So I was just thinking it was like the end of or not versus these like steps that I can climb to like pull this and pull that.
Hmm.
Are there any moments that you've had that were like aha moments in scenes, or any scenes that you remember that were so captivating, and like what happened in these scenes where you're like, oh, this is great. I love this because of whatever. There's a lot in that question, but whatever you want to pull
Hmm.
from it, feel free.
Gosh, that's such a beautifully challenging question.
It's like four
Um,
questions in one, but
it's great. You know, I was trying to tune into my own kind of performances, and I couldn't find anything. But something that came up. I mean, off the bat, watching some of Robin Williams' old stand-up, just all improvised essentially, and it's all
mm,
crowd work, which means he's basically creating an improv scene with the crowd, um, and then bringing in characters and skits and bits and everything just out of what he's getting from the crowd is so brilliant and crazy, like insane. I grew up watching Whose Lines It Anyway, so similar kind of like I was
mm.
like, what? Now I have realized and learned. I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you know they tape that, and it's sometimes you're doing the same scene multiple times, and it's not
Yeah, I was in the
always.
audience. I was in the audience for it once.
Oh yeah, how'd that go?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
We were not allowed to use the bathroom for the
Oh,
entire shoot. So it was like 6 hours. They wouldn't let us go to the bathroom. So
that's that's lovely.
that was I was like, okay, I don't know if you're able to do that, but they did. So that's what happened. But yeah, I mean, like you're saying, they did takes multiple times. A lot of times, I mean, like what was interesting is they would get like the guessing games, they would get it right, but they would fumble over saying it, so they would just retake it and have them say it again like cleanly, but like they
Right.
would get it right. So the improv is still there, but when you're thinking about improv for TV, you have to make it clean and
Hmm.
crisp. So it's not that they aren't improvising, it's just that when they're if they're like, oh, it's a spaghetti lobster, and I'm just making up something. They're like, it's a lobster spaghetti lobster, the noodles, spaghetti lobster. Like they're like, okay, great, you got it. Let's just take that again and just say what it is. And so so especially for timing, they got to be able to shrink that show into 20 minutes. So if you have this long
Yep.
answer, just making it cleaner. So yeah, so I mean, it is a whole different thing with Whose Line specifically is it is improvised, but they have to think about it for a television audience that it
Right.
has to be clean and crisp, and the edits have to be solid.
Right. That's good to know. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was curious. I've always
I
been
just
curious
derailed
about how.
the whole
No,
conversation,
no,
but yeah, that
that's
was
great.
that
Okay.
was the story.
Well, okay. So just piggybacking off of that again,
Yeah,
transitions are important.
yeah.
As you were talking, I was thinking about something that I had experienced when I was performing in college. This was a comedy troupe I was in at Florida State. This was 30 and
Woo,
60.
Florida State, hey,
Hey,
bachelor's
yo,
and masters,
yo,
baby.
whoa. Hey, advertising degree, yo.
My brother just
Education.
graduated from Florida State.
That's fun.
Hey,
Love it.
my
Go
mom went to
Knowles.
Florida
Yeah.
State. Ah.
Oh God. I think it's like
Well, her
there's
masters, her
a
masters.
okay, cool. But
She works
yeah,
at
there was
Florida
this
State.
one
Ah.
brow. Okay, I'm gonna close this computer. It's done.
Yeah. All right. See ya. Thanks for coming.
um, yeah, it was this character. I had named this character after one of my fraternity brothers, and he was this really really Scottish uh, kid named Jason Mortimer.
Mm,
But of course, he was Jason Mortimer,
yeah.
right? And I named this character after him, and my character was like he was like a Spetsnaz, not Spetsnaz, but whatever that special division of warfare in Ireland and England, the SAS maybe, um, highly specialized
No clue.
killers, right? These people are just
Okay.
top level Navy SEAL level killers, and he had moved to like uh, Hawaii or something, and he was teaching surfing lessons.
Oh
And
wow.
he brought all of his technical intensity and, art of war energy into his instruction for his surf students who are all beginners. And, so like the scene is basically me, like, how like you would line up a bunch of soldiers for a like a pre-battle kind of pep talk.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd line up all my little soldiers who are paddling in their surfboards, and I'm giving them this talk, and I'm telling them about, you've got to respect the waves; it'll carry you home. You've got to give it your all, or else, I'll talk about the dolphins and how the dolphins are out to kill you. Don't trust the dolphins. And I was like punching a dolphin at some point during
Oh
the
no.
scene. Further down the line, when we had a little battle between dolphins and me, um, it was a crazy hectic scene, and it was
Sure.
all me. It was like I was Jason Mortimer. Everyone else is just the 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 butt of my joke. Um, and it was really fun for me, and everyone liked it. We enjoyed the scene, but I think like doing it a lot, I started realizing that like me punching dolphins and me yelling about the waves and bringing in this heavy Scottish accent is all really funny, but the scene lacked others. And when we performed it, I remember like we got laughs, but like the intensity and the amount of energy I was portraying was not matched
Mm.
by what the audience was like giving back in terms of their engagement and laughter. And I remember always feeling after that, like, okay, like you can't carry it all alone. And even if you have the best, craziest character in the wildest, kookiest situations, eventually you're just going to burn out on stage and you're going to lose it. And the audience
Mm-hmm.
won't be able to really fully connect with you because you can't carry the whole thing yourself. Um, and then so like then that just like is contrasted by other scenes that I remember like that were so different where we all had big characters, they were all interacting, and those scenes always killed because each of the
Mm-hmm.
characters had a slightly just little bit that they would do, and it was so like multi-dimensional, in scenes like that when you have a lot of strong characters, so many layers to things, and then unexpected things happen all the time, even if you're having like a partially scripted scene. That's what 30 and 60 essentially was, is it was like
Mm.
kind of scripted. It was like
Yeah, 30
it was
scenes in
sort of
60 minutes, right? Wasn't that the thing?
yeah, 30 sketches
Yeah.
in 60 minutes. Yeah. So it was like everything
Yeah.
was really fast paced, and we had lines, but they weren't really solid. And there's a lot of improv in the shows. So
Yeah,
anyway, it just,
sure.
yeah, it felt like a good thing to come from that time in college to carry me, forward, where I just recognized that end of the day, you your joy and your fulfillment from performing is going to come from that camaraderie and that collection, the collective energy of who you're creating with.
Mm.
And rarely will you have as much fun or be as successful if it's just you shining the whole time.
Mm. That's great. I love it. I want to just give you a second now to, if you have any plugs or pitches or shout outs or whatever you want to do, plug away.
Plugs and pitches. Honestly, if y'all want to connect, hit me up at joshua.mesnik on Instagram. That's where I'm at. That's pretty much where I am in the public as of this moment. And I'm always releasing headshots
Aren't we all?
and updating my bio. And no, okay, I got some stuff cooking. You just
Yeah,
come
great.
over. You come over to Josh's kitchen. You'll see. There's some stuff cooking.
First start on Instagram and then work your way over to the
Yeah,
kitchen.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, come say hi.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Well, thanks so much for joining me. I have one final question for you. And this is kind of the reason why I did this whole improv summit. I also realized that like my fingers kind of disappear with this background. Anyway, and the main question I have for you, which is something that I get a lot from people, is people always are like, "Oh, you take a lot of improv. Where should I take improv?" And it feels like an overwhelming question, but it's also because there's just a lot of nuance to that question, and I feel like it kind of depends on what people want. But if someone came up to you and asked you that question, where should I take improv? What's one piece of advice or one tidbit that you'd give them to help start them on their career improv journey?
I would say, well, the the majority of my improv experience has come from gathering with friends and doing improv on our own.
Hmm.
Now there are different schools of thought and all that. Sometimes you can hire someone to come like be with you in that class who's a professional who can actually instruct you. But I would just say right off the bat, especially nowadays when in these unprecedented times when ice cream is melting on the streets in LA and there are pigeons who
Hmm.
won't even touch it because of their personal safety
Yeah.
issues. You know, you might have a fun opportunity and window to like create with friends who are desperate to be creative right now. So I'll just put that out there. Find a small group of people who you love and get together and try things out. Google games, just get the muscles going. That would be my first layer of advice because that's what's been my most of my experience doing improv. I've taken schools in New York more casually, like at the Magnet Theater. I did a musical improv series there. I've done like poetic storytelling stuff that was like had an improv base, and then I was at Groundlings for the first level, and then the pandemic hit, so I wasn't able to take the second level. I really love Groundlings. I will say, as an actor, Groundlings is awesome because of how they force you to establish relationship and then be affected by the other in the scene, which is really for me what acting has become in terms of a theory. Like you are so much more interesting to watch when you're connected to the other person and being affected by them.
Mm.
So I know there's a lot of different schools of improv. I've really enjoyed what I learned at Groundlings, and I would recommend it because that's what I've done out here in LA. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, yeah,
Cool. Yeah, I think this is all great. I think just doing it, I think is the main thing. And that's like what I want people to know is like there's no like right way to start improv. Just doing it is the right way. I mean, really.
freestyle rapping,
Oh, done it.
freestyle singing,
Done it.
uh, talking in front of a camera and just
Done
recording
it.
yourself talk about things.
Yeah.
That's improv. You know, writing without taking your hand off the paper, just free
Hmm.
writing for like
20
three,
minutes.
four
Yeah.
pages. That's improv. Basically, you're letting your brain and your body like simply move and channel. And improv is just about being an open channel, and it's just about like letting things flow through you that's uninhibited. But then the art form is then all of a sudden having form to it, and so you're uninhibited, but then you're specific and you're formed, and you
Mm.
have a character and you have a relationship and all these things. And that's the practice. So then you just get better at it and you start developing your own style. And I'll tell you what, man, it's it's been a long time since I've had a consistent improv, you know, rhythm because of what's
Mm.
been happening, and I miss it,
Yeah.
and I can easily go back to the times when I was doing improv in groups consistently and how like energizing it was and how good you feel after a class, even if it was kind of a rough class or a rough kind of performance, you still feel like,
Hmm.
yeah, we did that. I was flopping
Yeah.
around on the
Oh
ground.
yeah.
I was doing jumping jacks as a squid. That happened. I did it for five
Hmm.
minutes and I couldn't
And it's
escape.
also a lot of fun.
And it was great. So yeah, just do it. Do it
Yeah.
if you're curious about it. There's so many resources online, and then of course there's some great schools um, that offer really structured education.
I love it. That's great. Well, thanks so much for joining me. I said that was the last question I had for you, but as always on this show, I'm a big old liar. So I actually have another question for you.
Okay.
I know we've been talking a lot about improv, gibbity gabbing. That's what I just improvised. I know we're talking a lot about improv, but like, you want to do some improv?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right.
Sounds good, man.
Or let's
I like getting up in the
do
morning.
getting up in the morning. Okay, let's do that one then.
Yeah,
I won't give you a third option. We'll just do
love
that.
it. I think it's good. Nice and
Getting
simple.
up in the morning. Thank you.
Mm, 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 mm. Wow, what a dream. Did did you did you give me a no? No, I can't. I have a feeling that my dream last night actually happened tomorrow. Does that make sense?
So you're saying what happened in your dream last night, in theory, would happen tomorrow.
No, like it did happen. It happened tomorrow.
But like in your dream, it happened tomorrow, as in tomorrow was in your dream, but not actually happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
So last night was tomorrow.
Yeah, baby, I'm hungover.
Yeah, I know, I know, I can tell.
Wow. Well, you really plugged in last night. That was a
Yeah.
lot of juice.
I mean, you had a lot more than I did, that's for sure.
How's your cord? Is it okay? Is it still tight?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's good.
good.
How are you?
Uh, my cord's a little sore. Yeah, it's throbbing actually. Is it? Can you tell? Is it loose? No, it's good. It's tight.
No, it's good. It's good. It looks fine.
A lot of juice. A lot of juice. A lot of fun. Wow.
Yeah, you had a lot. You had a lot of fun, didn't
I
you?
did. I took off.
You did.
I I went out there. And
You.
they were chanting Sombrero Man. Do you remember that? They were chanting
I may
Sombrero
have
Man.
had. I may have had some to drink, but I definitely remember a few things.
Man, your bionic arm was crazy on the dance floor. It was doing some wiggles. Is that a new program? Did you? I mean, it was
Do you
a
like it? That's, I guess,
show.
the question I should ask.
I loved
Do you
it.
like?
I loved it. How?
Here, come here. Let me help you with that.
Mm, mm. Honestly, I'm not a fan of the. Thank you. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of that psychosomatic program. It was a little intense. I mean, to have music course through your eyeballs, I didn't realize it when I plugged in.
That's tough. Tough. That's
But
why I'm
man,
here. Here to here to help you out.
when your teeth started spinning, what?
How's that?
Crazy.
Does that feel better?
It's really nice, actually. Yeah, thanks. Oh, I'm so tired, actually.
Why don't you go back to sleep?
Hmm.
Damn. I was like, you fell asleep. I don't know what to do after that.
No, of course. I know. I know. What else he'd do?
Hey everybody, thanks so much for coming to the Improv Summit. As always, I'm your host Spencer, and today I had Josh. That's Josh. I'm Spencer. See you next time.
Bye, everybody. Bye
Bye.
bye.